my God. I've got lots of books, but anyway. Fucking Christ. Jean Rice. Oh, fuck. I don't even have any of that kind of shit. Jean Rice, Wired, Saragossa, C, Modern Classics. A load of shit. Edited with an introduction and notes by Angela Smith, one of the works of genius of the 20th century, Michelle Roberts, The Times. Born into an oppressive colonialist society, Creole heiress Antoinette Cosway meets a young English woman who is drawn to her innocent sensuality and beauty. After their marriage, disturbing rumours begin to circulate, poisoning her husband against her. Caught between his demands and her own precarious sense of belonging, Antoinette is driven towards madness. This is a fully annotated edition of Jean Rice's late literary masterpiece, which was inspired by Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre and is set in the lush, beguiling landscape of Jamaica in the 1830s. How bizarre. So I thought it was going to be poetry. I don't know where I got this idea. Wired Saragossa Sea. But no, alas, it is not poetry. It is possibly, and looking at the size of the book, a novella. I don't know. Penguin Modern Classics, Wired Saragossa Sea. Jean Rice was born in Dominica in 1890, the daughter of a Welsh doctor and a white Creole mother. When she was 16, she came to England, where, after her father died, she drifted into a series of demi-monde jobs: chorus girl, mannequin, artist's model. She began to write when the first of her 3 marriages broke up. She began to write when the first of her 3 marriages broke up. Oh. She was in her 30s by then and living in Paris. Oh my God, can you imagine it? By the time you're 30, you've had 3 marriages, where she was encouraged by Ford Madox Ford, who also discovered D.H. Lawrence. Ford wrote an enthusiastic introduction to her first book in 1927, a collection of stories called The Left Bank. This was followed by Quartet, originally Postures, 1928, after leaving Mr. Mackenzie, 1930, Voyage in the Dark, 1934, and Good Morning, Midnight, 1939. None was particularly successful, no doubt because all were decades ahead of their time in theme and tone, dealing as they did with women and underdogs exploited for and exploiting their sexuality. With the outbreak of war and subsequent failure of Good Morning Midnight, the books went out of print and Jean Rice dropped completely out of sight. It was generally thought that she was dead. Nearly 20 years later, she was rediscovered, largely due to the enthusiasm of the writer Francis Wyndham. She was living reclusively in Cornwall, and during those years had accumulated the stories collected in Tigers Are Better Looking. In 1966, she made a sensational reappearance with Wired Saragossa Sea, which won the Royal Society of Literature Award and the W.H. Smith Award for that year. Her only comment on her sudden great success was, "It has come too late." Her final collection of stories, Sleep It Off Lady, appeared in 1976, and Smile Please, her unfinished autobiography, was published posthumously in 1979. She was made a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature in 1966 and a CBE in 1978. Jean Rice, described by A. Alvarez, was one of the finest British writers of the century, died in 1979. Angela Smith was born in Smelmerston, Sussex, and educated in Eastbourne and at the universities of Birmingham and Cambridge. She taught at Northridge University, California, and for the Open University, and is now a senior lecturer in English Studies and director of the Centre of Commonwealth Studies at the University of Stirling. Her publications include East African Writing in English, Macmillan 1989, and Catherine Mansfield and Virginia Woolf, A Public of Two, Clarendon Press 1999. Jean Rice, Wide Sargasso Sea, edited by Angela Smith, Penguin Books. Copyright Jean Rice, 1966, editorial matter, copyright Angela Smith, 1997, all rights reserved. Oh, cunt of the living Lord Jesus. There's an introduction, because I'm thinking to myself, I don't really want to read the content of what this is about. Fucking shitty heterosexuals, men and women, and men, heterosexual men, abusing women, and that's all heterosexual men do, because they're abusers and they're dirty and filthy. This isn't actually the content of the story. And Jesus fucking Christ, the shitty fuck that is Jesus. We've got, God knows how many pages there are, but there's a introduction, a note on the text, Wide Sargasso Sea, and an appendix, general notes, notes to the text, further reading. So it's a very short story. Anyway, moving on. Jean Rice seemed to many of her contemporaries to be a revenant. What the fuck does that mean? Someone who returns to a familiar place like Lazarus from the dead. Frances Wyndham, then literary advisor to the publishing house Andre Deutsch, was told in 1950 that she had recently died in a sanatorium, and in an article referred to her as the late Jean Rice. While at the BBC, she was said to have died in tragic circumstances during the war. After the publication of her first 5 books, between 1927 and 1939, she seemed to have disappeared while she was still living, though in relative poverty and obscurity, and her novels went out of print. She wrote to a friend in 1949 that my bitter enemy next door is now telling everybody very loud and clear that I'm an imposter, sick. Oh my God, she was sick, morally, because she was heterosexual. Impersonating a dead writer called Jean Rice. And there's a footnote. That she seemed a spectral figure impersonating her dead self frightened her. Her letters show an awareness of the dead writer could be reincarnated in a variety of ways. I can't resist quoting something Miss Vaz Diaz said. Dear Miss Rice, you're so gentle and quiet. Not at all what I expected. I'm losing this, and it's a bit dumb. It's a bit sad. I was looking forward to some shitty poetry about shitty Jesus. But alas. And it's been fucking 8 minutes. Oh, fucking cunt. Right, this is London present day. Girls are disappearing and strange creatures are on the streets. When Lily is attacked by a 2-headed dog, she's saved. Jesus, cunt. When Lily is attacked by a 2-headed dog, she is saved by hot, tattooed and not quite human Ronald Reagan. As guardian of the gates, it's his job to protect both halves of the city, new and old, from a world of restless creatures that threaten its very existence. As the city spins out of control, Lily and Ronald Reagan race to find the bitches, discover the truth and express a terrible conspiracy. Lucy Inglis, The Mortal Instruments. I'm confused. Why on earth, out of the blue, The Mortal Instruments? Who's the author? Lucy Inglis, City of Halves. I swear I remember reading some of this before. I wonder if I'll have any, whether it will jog my memory. Glory shit. Was it a message from Chicken House? London is a very old, very strange city, magical, mysterious and mythical, and it's Lily's home. Oh, I'm sorry, but this is just shit and I'm not enjoying it. Don't read it, it's fucking shit. Where's that text? Copyright Lucy Inglis, 2014. Chapter 1. Oh, I can hear that fucking fly. Okay, so what have we got? Lily's dad paced the kitchen in his shirt and tie, running his fingers through his fading blonde hair. Lily put her chin in her hand and stared at her laptop. I told you, Dad, not enough. The guy who sold her the papers is a Visa, passport, whatever faker. Facial recognition on the CCTV has had him in the city a few times recently, but he doesn't stay anywhere long enough to get caught. How long has it been? 11.5 minutes. And without her, we're not going to get any further. Father, further. Her father, called Further, rubbed his face, then folded his arms, and then slapped her in the face. What's she doing in the city? He shrugged. Pubs mainly, probably meeting clients, although there are a couple of places she goes that I can't figure out, most likely dead drops, just leaving the papers for people to come, and shit they come. One derelict alley in Bow Lane in particular. I do remember reading this. I didn't read it all to the end. It must have been, was it this year or last year? There wouldn't have been. It's 2019 now. Last year was 2018. It wouldn't have been 2017. Sometime in 2018. Probably the end of 2018. Oh, yeah. I think I have kind of read this before. Yeah, I don't know. What's it about again? It's fucking retarded. Oh no, that's actually quite interesting, some bits of it. I wouldn't say it's the greatest book known to fucking mankind.